NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over. When the Nets just can't play. What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here bringing you the latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. All right, so we got a bit to talk about in this episode. But before we do, I do want to share something pretty cool with you right now. It was something that I got just the other day. It was a late Christmas present. And it is a custom NetsBoy City Edition jersey. Check that out. That is so cool. It was something that my college buddy Matt suggested because, you know, I haven't been able to figure out what jersey I wanted for the longest time. I wear the sweatshirt because I don't want a Kevin Durant jersey because everyone has a Kevin Durant jersey. You know, I don't want a Kyrie jersey because he's a head case. And personally, I think 11 should always be Brook Lopez's number. I'm not going to go into that. I obviously don't want a James Harden jersey because, I mean, do I really need to go into that? I mean, we're talking about James Harden here. And I don't want a player who's most likely going to be traded or could be traded like Joe Harris and or Nicholas Claxton, even though I personally don't want either of them to be traded, nor do I think they should, but there's a chance, right? So I haven't been able to get a jersey. So, like I said, my old college buddy Matt, he kind of made the suggestion. He said, why don't you get a NetsBoy jersey? And, you know, I'm like, nah, it's got to be expensive and so on and so forth. But I did mention it to my mother, and, you know, I didn't really think she was going to get it. I just mentioned it. I didn't say I wanted it. I just said, hey, you know, one college buddy of mine said that maybe, there could be a NetsBoy jersey. Lo and behold, she got it for me. So thank you both, Matt and my mother. Matt for the suggestion and my mother for actually getting it for me. I think it's pretty cool. I'm not a fan of the 00, but that's like the default number. I feel like people are going to see this and be like, Rodion's Kurucs? I mean, because this 00 is his number. Where is he anyway? I don't know. I know he's not in the NBA anymore. At least I'm assuming he's not in the NBA anymore. I think after he got traded last year in the James Harden trade, I'm pretty sure that was the end of his career, which is a shame because the guy had talent and ability, but couldn't put it all together. But anyway, I just don't want people to be like, is that Rodion's Kurucs? No, it's NetsBoy. But anyway, so it's really cool. So thank you again to my mother for getting it and my buddy Matt for suggesting it. But there is some issues with this, other than the 00. I don't know whose fault it was, okay? My mother blamed the NBA store, so on and so forth, but it is like a size and a half too small. And, trust me, like, I tried it on. It is way too tight. There's things bulging that I didn't even realize could bulge. So, great picture, right? So that's a bit of an issue. And then the other part of that is because it's a custom jersey, they won't take it back. My mother tried, and they said, we don't do take-backs on custom jerseys because we can't resell the jersey because who's going to buy a NetsBoy jersey, right? I mean, hey, who knows? If NetsBoy gets really, really popular eventually, which hasn't happened in 7 years, so I don't know why it would happen now. But, maybe people would want a NetsBoy jersey. But also remember, I don't own the rights to the name NetsBoy or have anything to do with the Brooklyn Nets or the Brooklyn Nets logo. I put that disclaimer at the end of all my episodes because I don't want a lawsuit on my hands. So it's not even like you could really get a NetsBoy jersey, even if I was trying to sell it, because I can't legally do that because I don't own those rights. So just want to throw that out there. So no one come to me and say, NetsBoy, I'll buy that jersey off you, or I would like a custom NetsBoy jersey, because I can't legally do that, okay? I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not getting sued, okay? Anyway, so we'll rest at that. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to get it framed. I'm probably going to get it framed, and you see this wonderful wall right behind me? I think I'm going to get it framed and have it just hang up right there, right? I think that would look pretty cool. So then every time I do a NetsBoy episode, you'll see it right behind me. I already got the banner. Let's have the City Edition custom NetsBoy jersey. So that's what I'm thinking about that I'm going to do. So who knows? Maybe in the next NetsBoy episode, you'll see this hanging behind me. I think that'd be pretty cool. So anyway, just wanted to share that with everybody. But that's the end of that. No more about the NetsBoy City Edition jersey because we got to talk about the actual Nets. So let's do that. Okay, so look, they went 2-3 the last 5 games. Disappointing losses with the Timberwolves and the Lakers. Predictable loss with the Nuggets, with the fact that, James Harden and Claxton didn't play in that game. And all these things. And, I could go into what I saw in those games and talk about the issues and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to, because I really want to focus the rest of this episode on Steve Nash and his rotation, or his inability to figure out a rotation. Before we talk about that, let's just briefly talk about the trade speculation rumors regarding James Harden. After the Lakers lost, it was reported that James Harden is upset and frustrated with the Nets organization. He's upset with the Kyrie Irving situation. He's upset with the rotation. He's upset with the weather of Brooklyn. And is seeking a trade, or might be asking for a trade, or may not re-sign with the Nets over the offseason because he doesn't want to be with the Nets anymore, and all the speculation. It was later reported that James Harden spoke to Joe Asai and Sean Marks and said, this is not the case. I want to be here. My best chance to win is with this organization when healthy. We believe we're the best team in basketball when fully healthy. I believe that as well. So it was quickly squashed for the time being. Look, I get it. All right? I get why people think what they think. But I think this is a story pretty much made out of nothing. I don't think there was really much to these rumors. I'm sure James Harden has said some things behind the scenes that kind of got leaked out. He certainly has said in post-game interviews that he's frustrated and he wishes that we could have more continuity to the rotation and stuff. But he never ever said, like, I hate the rotation, or I hate Kyrie's situation and this and that. I hate the weather. He never said that. But I understand why people maybe came to that conclusion. But let's look at this rationally. There's not one person in the Nets organization that is not frustrated with the Kyrie Irving situation. I think even Kyrie himself is frustrated with it, even though he has all the power and ability to rectify the situation. He's not thrilled with it either. I don't know anyone. There's no one in the organization that's like, we're so glad we only have Kyrie 50% of the time. Like, no one's saying that. So I don't know why anyone would expect, like, James Harden to all of a sudden have a different opinion than probably everyone else in the organization. It's just that everyone respects Kyrie as a person and as a player, that they don't really want to stir up more problems by saying it's all or nothing, although they did say that originally. But obviously, there's more things that were obviously discussed between Kyrie and the Nets. But I mean, like, saying, like, you either going to get vaccinated or we're going to trade you or cut you or anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's happy about it. And so I understand the frustration, and I believe there is frustration. But is it enough that James Harden wants out of Brooklyn? No, that part doesn't add up. The weather. I mean, yeah, the weather is much worse than it is in Houston. I mean, actually, I would argue that Texas weather is torturous, okay? I've never actually been to Texas, so I guess maybe I'm kind of talking out my butt right now. But just from what I've seen, I mean, first and foremost, you'll never catch me living in anywhere that's part of, Tornado Valley, okay? When you have to worry about a tornado, 8 months of the year, destroying your house, I'm not for it, okay? Sorry, I'm not doing it. Same thing with living in her. I'm sorry, I don't want to get off topic here. I don't understand how people live in these high-risk natural disaster areas, because I like my things. And I understand you could have insurance and so on and so forth, but I don't want to buy a bunch of new crap every 2 years because it gets destroyed in a tornado or hurricane. I'm just saying, okay? So, but I'm not going to go into that right now. Also, I don't like the heat. But anyway, it's all beside the point. It's all completely irrelevant. Yeah, okay, the weather is different. Is that really the reason he's not going to want to sign somewhere? I always think it's funny when people say things like he wants to go home, or he doesn't like his weather situation, or he doesn't like where he lives right now. I mean, you're a professional athlete that travels more than half the time with your job. what city you work in, or where you play your home games should play a very small factor in what you actually want to do and where you want to live. Like, I don't think there's really anyone who wants to say, I play for the Brooklyn Nets, so I have to live in Brooklyn. What? No, okay? You don't have to live in Brooklyn. You can have an apartment in Brooklyn, so you have a place to stay on home games, and you're going to be there more often. But you could live in Los Angeles. You could live in Houston. You could live anywhere you want because you're always traveling. So I never understood that. Well, he wants to be, doesn't like where he lives. He wants to be closer to home. He wants to live somewhere. The only way that makes sense is if you're someone who has family in that area and you want to be close to that family regularly, right? But then it doesn't matter, in my opinion, because then, well, hold on, then it does matter. But then I understand it because at least 50% of the time you would like to see them. So I get it, and that's what the argument would be, is that, well, NetsBoy, they don't want to uproot their families all the time. They want to keep their families in one spot. They want to see them as much as possible. I completely understand that theory. But to say that that's the reason why someone doesn't want to be in a specific city, to me, doesn't make sense. So I don't believe it's that either. However, I can get behind the Steve Nash rotation comment. Not necessarily that I would say that James Harden wants to be traded because of it, but I agree 100%. Steve Nash seems like he has no idea what he's doing with this rotation. Heck, he's pretty much admitted he doesn't know what he's doing with this rotation. And, everyone blames COVID and the injuries. Look, it's not that, okay? It's not that. The reality of the situation is Steve Nash doesn't seem like he wants to do what's best for the team as much as what he believes is best for the players. Now what do I mean by that? James Johnson, DeAndre Bembry, and Bruce Brown. I'm going to basically focus on those three. I touched upon this before. They're all very good players in their own way, right? They're all rotational NBA players. We saw how great Bruce Brown was for the Nets last year. We've seen both James Johnson and DeAndre Bembry play well for the Nets this year as well. They pretty much, though, provide the same type of benefit to the Nets, right? All three of them are high energy, high defense slashers who cannot shoot the three-point ball if their life depended on it. So why is Steve Nash putting all three of them out there? It makes no sense. It is the 2020 NBA where basically if you can't make a three-point shot, you can't be in the league. So why is Steve Nash saying, let's take three players who cannot shoot and let's put them out there with LaMarcus Aldridge? Like, that doesn't make sense. LaMarcus Aldridge is an inside-out player. He can shoot the mid-range. He can post up. So when teams double-team him, what do? He passes the ball. And then Bruce Brown gets it. What's he going to do? He's going to pump fake and dribble to the basket and go nowhere. Oh, I know. He's then going to pass it to James Johnson. What's he going to do? I'm a career 28% shooter. I'm going to pump fake. Then I'm going to dribble. I'm going to pass it to DeAndre Bembry. What's he going to do? I'm a 32% career three-point shooter. I'm going to pump fake, dribble, penetrate, and then kick it out. And what happens? Shot clock violation or terrible offensive set. It's just so obvious what the problem is, but yet Steve Nash won't do anything to fix it. Stop playing those three guys. I like them. They're good players. They deserve opportunities. I get it. But they can't play with the rest of these players right now. It doesn't fit. You can't have those three guys clogging up everything with their inability to stretch the floor. Have you seen some of the spacing you see when you have some of those guys out there? It's a cluster of disaster. I mean, if James Harden ever gets to the basket, he is collapsed by 5 defenders. And he's put in a situation where he either has to force the ball up or kick it out to someone who won't shoot. And if they do shoot, they will miss it 80% of the time. How is that good basketball? I mean, and look, Steve Nash would say, NetsBoy, I'm only playing the players I have on my roster. And I get it, right? You know, with Joe Harris being out, same thing with Kevin Durant, the Nets are lacking shooting. And it's something that I strongly believe that Sean Marks needs to address by the trade deadline, which we'll probably touch upon in my next NetsBoy episode because trade deadline's like 2.5 weeks away. They absolutely need more shooting, and I get it. But you got to be smarter with who you put out there and when. Look, the Nets have 2 legitimate three-point shooters on this team right now. All right? 3 if you count James Harden. Kessler Edwards and Patty Mills. That's not good, okay? In the modern NBA, that's not good. But the reality is he's got to utilize those 2 guys more with the players that they have on this roster. If that means you got to shrink the roster and play only 9 guys, then you play 9 guys. You don't play 11 guys and just throw a bunch of players out there and be like, I wonder if they could help me. I wonder if this would work. I wonder if that would work. Come on. Steve, you are supposed to be one of the greatest point guards of all time. You're supposed to be like a top 5 point guard in the history of the NBA. You're supposed to have an amazing basketball IQ, yet you can't figure out basic spacing? It's crazy. It's crazy. And then he'll do this 11th man rotation and then forget to play somebody again. He's even admitted to that. He's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, oh, maybe I should put Cam Thomas back in. Like, come on. Pick the players that fit the best together and go with that. Who are those players? At this point, it's James Harden, Patty Mills, all right? Kessler Edwards, Nicholas Claxton when he comes back, and then you can start one of those other guys who aren't great shooters, whether it's Bruce Brown, Bembry, or James Johnson. One of them. You can never have more than 2 non-shooters out there at one point, and because the offense will have no flow. I mean, the Nets are losing games because they can't score now. It used to be the other way around. They usually lose games because they couldn't play defense. Now they play solid defense, but they can't score. So you can't have a rotation where you have more than 2 non-3-point threats out there. And I get it. You only got really 3 guys that can do that. I kind of like to put Cam Thomas as a 4th unofficial guy who can stretch the floor because we saw he can make the 3. But, you know, you can't have that many players who aren't threats. And I also want to riddle me this. And he did it in the Nuggets game, but only out of necessity. Where the hell's Javon Carter? Look, I haven't been a big Javon Carter fan all year, but I'll tell you this right now. He's a much better 3-point shooter than Bruce Brown, DeAndre Bembry, and James Johnson. He probably is the 3rd best 3-point shooter on the team. 4th, once again, if you count James Harden. But I don't count James Harden because he's not a spot-up 3-point shooter. He's a dribble through his legs 17 times, step back, take stupid jump shot 3-point shooter. So Javon Carter should be playing more. He should be in the rotation regularly. Not Bruce Brown, DeAndre Bembry, and James Johnson. One of those guys has to stop. One of those guys have to be out of the rotation. But Steve Nash wants to cater to his players. He wants to say, you guys have played well, you're my veterans, you provide energy, and none of you have played poorly enough to be banished from the rotation other than Paul Millsap. So we are trying to play you at least, 5-10 minutes a game and see what happens. You can't do that! Play the players that work, Steve. Play Javon Carter more. Play Patty Mills 35 minutes. Play Kessler Edwards 35 minutes. Let Cam Thomas be the focal point of the offense for once. You saw what happened, right? When Cam Thomas took over the game in the Nuggets game, the Nets had a fighting chance because Cam Thomas showed that if you run the offense through him, let him get in the pick and roll with LaMarcus Aldridge, it's a lethal combination. Because what is the defense going to do? They can either rotate and guard Cam Thomas and leave LaMarcus Aldridge wide open for a mid-range jump shot at which he shoots like 60% from, or they're going to switch and guard Aldridge and let Cam Thomas have a one-on-one matchup with a big and make a floater. It's a lethal combination. Yet for some dumb reason, Steve Nash says, well, that seems like we can score. Let's just ignore it completely. I got an idea. Let's put James Johnson and DeAndre Bembry and Bruce Brown in. Let them run around like morons and jack up some shots. Maybe we'll win that way. It's just mind-boggling to me how someone with his basketball IQ can't see things that I personally believe are so obvious to see. And who the hell am I? All right, I'm just a passionate fan. I've never played basketball at the NBA level. The most I ever went was rec league in college. All right. Granted, I do watch basketball a lot, and I used to broadcast the game when I worked at the radio station at Seton Hall, and I was a color and play-by-play, and I do know the game pretty well. But I am not a former professional athlete, MVP basketball player who's currently the head coach of a team with championship aspirations. So if I can say this, so should Steve Nash. And that's how I'm going to end it. I'm not going to waste my time with what I think the Nets should do in the next couple games because, like I said, at this point, it's irrelevant because who knows how this team's going to play? Who knows who's going to be in the rotation? Who knows who's going to magically get hurt again? All I know is that the Nets are third in the East right now and only 2 games up out of the 6th seed, and they really need to get their crap together because if they drop to the 6th seed, it could be a problem because nobody wants that if you're the Nets. All right? I'm sorry. I don't care what people are saying about, oh, well, if the Nets are the lower seed, they get Kyrie Irving for more games against road games. I don't believe that this Kyrie Irving situation is going to be an issue come to playoff time. I'm telling you that right now. It's going to be rectified before that. So that's a stupid thing to say. They need to figure this out and figure it out ASAP. And Steve Nash, who I will give him credit for this, the guy does try to figure things out. He does always toy with new things. So he understands there's a problem, and at least he's trying to fix it. Unlike some other coaches who are just like, this is the way it has to be because I am the one in charge. Cough, cough, Tom Thibodeau. Sorry, Knicks fans. It's just a fact. That's kind of the situation right there, I love it when the Knicks struggle. I love it. Anyway, so I will give Steve Nash credit for that he tries to figure things out, but it just kind of shocks me of how long it's taken him to figure things out. So that's it. I'm ending this episode. We're over 20 minutes. We're going a little too long. Let me know what you guys think. If you agree with me that Steve Nash should be shortening this rotation, playing Javon Carter more, not putting those 3, non-shooters out there as much, and just really getting the rotation figured out. If you agree with me that, of course, James Harden's frustrated, but he's not going anywhere. If you agree with me about putting the, NetsBoy jersey up on the wall, other stuff. Let me know what you guys think about everything. And until then, this is NetsBoy signing off.